Have you heard the news? Because if you are planning on taking the CPC exam soon, there is something you need to know. Big changes are on the horizon, and today I'm going to tell you all about them. Hey everyone, I'm Victoria. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, content creator, and on my channel I provide tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you be successful in your medical coding career. I'm here to tell you about some changes that are on the horizon with the CPC exam and make sure that you are best prepared to handle these advances that are happening. You need to understand the implications of what has changed so that you can be best set up for success. So let me break down for you some of the things that are going to be happening. First off, local chapters will no longer be hosting exams starting in 2024. Now, does that mean the end of in-person exams? Not exactly. There will be the option between the online remote proctored or taking the exam at an exam center. Now, exact details about this are forthcoming, but since the AAPC is partnered with Mazor, formerly Scantron, for their online proctored exams, it seems kind of likely that they would also be using their exam centers. If you go to the Mazor website, you can see that they do have lots of different exam centers across the United States. So that may very well be their exam vendor. Now, that does likely mean that paper examinations will be eliminated in 2024, but not necessarily in-person examinations. And exam centers in general are kind of notorious for being very strict about things. They're going to be, I'm sure, a lot more strict than the local chapters were about things maybe like having your cell phone in the exam room. And I'm sure they won't be handing out little goodie bags with treats and information about your certifications like the local chapters would have. And that may very mean that some states don't have as many exam centers and you may have to drive a little bit more of a distance to get to your exam. Now, in his speech at HealthCon 2023, Bevan Erickson, who's the president of the AAPC, said that it might be possible for local chapters to proctor again, but that currently they don't have the tech that's needed, the computers and the systems and the setup, which again kind of leads one to believe they're not going to be doing paper exams, they're going to be doing them on a computer. It's not something I would heavily rely on, that local chapters will be easily and readily able to proctor exams again because of some of those limitations that Bevan notated. But this also means that AAPC's licensed instructors will also no longer be able to independently proctor examinations starting in 2024. Personally, I wouldn't hold my breath or rely heavily on thinking that people will be able to independently proctor again. And if it does happen, then it'll just be a nice surprise. Now, speaking of Bevan Erickson's speech, he also mentioned that they are piloting using ebooks for the examinations. Friends, this is huge. Now, first off, it does make sense. The time and the expense in printing and processing and shipping out all of these books is expensive, and it uses a lot of resources, even environmental resources. And more employers in the industry are working with remote teams, and they want them to just have access to their tools on their computer. They don't want to have to take on additional expense of shipping books all around to these remote employees. It's very expensive to have them each individually shipped out, or to have to place a bulk order and then someone process them and ship them all out to each individual person. Everybody's looking to cut costs these days, and honestly, more employers want their employees to work with the electronic tools versus physical ones. And that's why the training program that I recommend, Preppy, uses ebooks. They use the bookshelf ebooks, the same ones that might be permitted then for the exams. You can find out more at medicalcodingmasterclass.com, and it will give you this amazing career roadmap about how you can go and get the best training for medical billing and coding, which would be through Preppy, and they offer you great things like all of those ebooks and even an externship. When you're done with this video, definitely check it out, medicalcodingmasterclass.com. So here's some tips you need to know about using the ebooks versus the paper books. Now, in the ebooks, you can still highlight, you can still take notes. In fact, you are able to share your notes or copy someone else's notes. What you do is you go into the tools and click the plus sign, and that will bring up the access to allow sharing. Now, because of this ease of sharing, that is going to put some predicaments in the people that are selling different thought processes or methodologies on how to highlight and circle and notate your books. Because with the electronic books, it's a lot more easier to share your highlights. There's not really a lot that's going to hold people back from sharing what their notes are with a mass amount of people. And we do have that risk that it could also open the door of examinees going in, finishing their exam, closing out, and then trying to remember everything they possibly could of all the questions that were on the exam, and then write them in notes in their ebook and share them with their friends. So it'll be interesting to see if we are going to have each student sign into their individual bookshelf app to open up their book, and that they will permit all of the highlighting and notes within it, or if they're going to embed in the application a blank version of the books to utilize. Now, in order to be successful with these ebooks, you do need to get familiar with the navigation. Personally, I find that the CPT manuals in Bookshelf are easier to navigate than the ICD-10-CM manuals. When you go into CPT on the index and find a code, you can click on it and it will take you right to that code. It doesn't do that in ICD-10-CM. If you find a code in the alphabetic index, you just have to go then and navigate through to that code, and you have to find the right section and then scroll through until you get to the code, or you can do the Control F to find that code. But of course, there are other pros to using an ebook version of ICD-10-CM, like for those of us that get to a certain age that may have more trouble seeing small text, you can adjust the text size to be larger. There is also an option to read aloud. The voices are a little bit more mechanical, but there is that option that if you're someone who just wants to hear them repeating the guidelines, you can have them read them aloud. If you're someone that's not comfortable with ebooks, this really is the time to start getting comfortable with them. When we transition, years from now, when we transition to ICD-11, it's not going to be printed out in paper books because it is too large. There's so much technology blooming right now in this industry that we really do need to start getting familiar with these electronic tools. If you're someone who's not comfortable yet using these sort of resources, VitalSource Bookshelf does have lots of different tutorials that you can watch on how to navigate through these, and they go through them at a very comfortable pace. These upcoming changes for the CPC exam are significant, and they do require the attention of those prospective coders, probably like you. The shift away from local chapters means that the in-person exams as we know them will no longer exist. We're going to have them at exam centers, no more paper examinations. The options will be the online remote proctored or at the designated testing centers. And what Bevan Erickson mentioned at HealthCon 2023 about that potential use of ebooks, that is in alignment with what a lot of employers are looking for now. That transition from physical resources to electronic ones is going to save us a lot of time, money, and resources, which, hey, what company doesn't want to do that? That's the industry trend. That is why training programs like Preppy utilize the ebooks, because we're trying to set you up for success. You can find out more about that at my free career masterclass, medicalcodingmasterclass.com. And they're using the exact same application, Bookshelf, to host all your books. It is still possible to highlight and take notes. It might not be as obvious as if you just grab a highlighter and highlight a book. But as these changes are implemented, it is so important for aspiring coders to get on board and adapt their study methods with these electronic tools in order to set themselves up for success in their career. And if you want to make sure that you are informed and staying abreast of all the changes in this adapting landscape, you definitely want to make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, just keep on coding on.